Hi everyone, my name is Riya, and I'm going to be reading The Class That Canned Food Allergies today. This is a book that JJ and I wrote, so I hope you enjoy. How fast can you count to 50? My friend Aiden can count to 50 in 17.6 seconds. That's fast, really fast. That's almost as fast as Isabella can type the ABCs on a computer. Just the other day, as my friends and I watched, it took Isabella 49 seconds to type the ABCs backwards. My friends can. That may sound like an odd thing to say, but it's true. There's even a giant tongue-twisting, lip-lifting, cheek-chuckling sign that hangs on the front of the Can classroom. Mrs. Can's class of cans, kids can. Try and say that sentence 10 times fast. The first day of school, our teacher, Mrs. Can, had us repeat the line over and over and over and over until we could say it really fast. Really. When you have a teacher like Mrs. Can, every day is a learning adventure. Yes, our teacher's name is Mrs. Can. And yes, she calls us Mrs. Can's class of cans, kids. And yes, every kid in Mrs. Can's class of cans, kids can. I am Maya, and I can code computer programs. Yes. I am Nathan, and I like to play sports. Yes. I am Kayla, and I can do amazing things with a paintbrush. Yes. And my name is Colin, and I can write. Since I like writing, Mrs. Can asked me last week to write an important book. That's the book you're reading right now. Class, Mrs. Can said as we were finishing a math lesson last Thursday, I need everyone to report to Can Carpet and Can Corner. I have something very important to discuss with you. Great things happen in Can Carpet and Can Corner. That's where we learn new things. That's where we show all that we can do. As my classmates and I sat on the floor, I pulled up a seat with my pencil and paper so I could write my notes. Kayla joined me, as she is the artist. Today we're going to learn an important skill, Mrs. Can explained. All the students leaned in. We are going to learn how to be good friends. Be good friends? Asked Taylor doubtfully. Is being good friends a skill? It is a skill, Mrs. Can answered, and I'm about to show you why. Mrs. Can walked to the front. You know how I'm always telling you about all the amazing things I can do? Yes, shouted Lily. You can do everything. Well, Mrs. Can said, I can't do everything. I can't dunk a basketball, I can't whistle, and I can't eat shellfish. What? Asked Elliot. You can't eat shellfish? No, Mrs. Can said. I have a food allergy. A food allergy, several students asked. What's that? Food allergies are when there's a food that you can't eat because it will make you really sick. Mrs. Can explained, writing the definition on the board. If I eat something I'm not supposed to, my face could swell up with bumps called hives. I could get dizzy, and it could become very hard for me to breathe. That sounds scary, said Maya. It can be scary, Mrs. Can said, but as long as I have my medicine nearby and friends who know how to help me, I feel safe. And me feeling safe is what allows me to do all the other things I love doing. That's why I'm talking to you today about friendship. Friends play their part by understanding how serious food allergies are, and by washing their hands after eating, and by knowing what to do if someone is having a reaction. As Mrs. Can talked, I was writing down her thoughts as quickly as I could. Kayla was drawing like Picasso, twice the speed. Mrs. Can explained that people can be allergic to any food, but there are some specific foods that are the most common. As quickly as she listed the items, Kayla was turning them into a cool poster. Mrs. Can also explained what happens to a person when they eat the food they're allergic to. Kayla captured her ideas perfectly. Does anyone have any questions or anything to add? Mrs. Can asked. Nathan raised his hand and walked to the front of the room. Nathan is a new kid. We just met him a few weeks ago. I once saw him do 30 push-ups in gym class without even getting tired. He looked at Mrs. Can. She nodded to him. She knew what he was going to say. Hi, everyone, Nathan said. We could see that he was nervous. He continued, You know that I love sports and health and fitness. Someday I want to be a professional athlete. Mrs. Can jumped in front of his seat and interrupted. Mrs. Can's class of cans, kids can be pro athletes, we exclaimed. Nathan smiled, which seemed to make him feel a little bit less nervous. There's something you don't know about me, something that I was sort of scared to talk about. I looked up. Just like Mrs. Can, I have a food allergy too, he said. I can't have milk or nuts. Riley raised her hand. When you have a food allergy, what do you have to do to be safe? I stay away from the food I'm allergic to, Nathan said. I always need to read the labels of foods carefully or ask an adult to help me read the ingredients before I eat. But even then, Nathan added, I can sometimes still have an allergic reaction because of cross-contact. What's cross-contact? Ivan asked. Cross-contact is when an allergen, like milk, accidentally gets mixed into your food, but you don't know it. Nathan explained, if my uncle used the same spatula to flip my hamburger that he used to flip his cheeseburger, cheese could get in my food and make me really sick. It helps when friends wash their hands after they eat and clean up, Nathan added. Also, if anyone sees someone having a reaction, they should make sure to get a teacher or adult right away. What will the teacher do? Ashley asked. Teachers know because they are trained and doctors give them special action plans that say what to do if someone has an allergic reaction. I always carry my epinephrine wherever I go. Just like I always wear my seatbelt in the car, I never leave home without my epinephrine. My parents even have a nickname for it, EpiFriend. It keeps me safe and always has my back, just like a good friend should. EpiFriend. Mrs. Can walked over to the first aid kit, opened it, and handed 2 epinephrine injectors to Nathan so we could show them to the class. If I eat something that I'm allergic to, I inject this into my outer thigh. He said, I always carry 2 with me, just in case the first one isn't enough. Does it hurt? Parker asked. Nope, it's just a tiny pinch. Nathan explained. It makes me feel better fast. When I take it, though, I still have to go to the hospital so the doctors can make sure I'm okay. As Nathan was talking, Kayla was studying the epinephrine. She quickly drafted 2 important posters, Emergency Action Plan and How to Give Epinephrine. Kayla also outlined the 3 steps people do if they see a reaction. 1. Get help. Tell an adult and call 911. 2. Keep talking to your friend and reassure them that help is on the way and that they will be okay. And 3. Help in giving medications, such as epinephrine, if needed. Mrs. Can and Nathan talked a bit longer, and we all were interested. There was one question I really wanted to know, though, and since no one asked it, I raised my hand. Nathan, why were you so scared to tell us about your food allergy? I asked. He paused for a second to think. Well, I was scared because I didn't know if you'd understand. Sometimes people aren't nice and act like food allergies aren't that big of a deal, but they are, he finally explained. The best thing to realize is that even though we have food allergies, we're just like everybody else. We don't like to feel left out. Mrs. Can continued. Everyone has things they can't do. She said, no one should ignore these things. We should accept them and understand them because they're very important. But we should not let them define us. And we certainly should not be embarrassed by them or let them make us sad. Kayla then said, I'm glad you talked to us about food allergies, Mrs. Can, but what can we do to help? Excellent question, Kayla, Mrs. Can responded. One thing you can do is to understand how serious food allergies are. Yeah, it helps when everyone washes their hands before and after eating, Nathan chimed in. Also, anytime you bring food for a party, make sure it's safe for everyone to eat. Lauren raised her hand. I'm glad you talked to us about food allergies, Mrs. Can, and I'm glad Nathan trusted us too. I learned a lot today about food allergies and about friendship, Ava added, and I'm ready to do my part. I'm ready too, exclaimed Nia. With a big smile, Mrs. Can immediately jumped from her seat. We all jumped too. We knew what she was going to do. Ready? Every kid in Mrs. Can's class of cans can be a good friend. All right, that's it. Thank you so much.